Be vegan, make peace, do good deeds, heaven Godspeed.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Unsere Sendungen bieten viele Sprachen. Gehen Sie auf suprememastertv.com/schedule.
The last solar maximum in 2013 to 2014 was very muted, and scientists had predicted another quiet peak for this cycle, which is dubbed Solar Cycle 25. But with the next maximum still a year or more away, this cycle is already exceeding expectations for activity and may even be the most intense period we've seen on the Sun since record-keeping began.
Solar Flares, a Warning for Humanity, Part 1 of 2. Please continue watching to find out more.
It just takes 1 second to decide stopping. It doesn't make any huge, chaotic change in our life. It's just we eat something else. It is so simple. It can be done instantly. So less effort for the very big result. Ethically for the animals and other poor people. For the planet, for our own health. It seems with the sensible mind, I should say it is not an extreme perspective. It is a most reasonable and compassionate point of view. The Venerable Matthew recalled, vegan.
Hello, noble viewers. I am Seleone, and I am greeting you from the charismatic Wallis and Futuna Islands. The humble people of the islands wish that you always be inspired by the wonders of the cosmos to radiate inner peace and love in God's glory. Welcome to our show, Solar Flares, a Warning for Humanity, Part 1 of 2. There's a cosmic rhythm that permeates the entire solar system. Around every 11 years, the Sun's magnetic field flips. The North Pole and South Pole switch places. This causes the Sun to have seasons of low and high activity, also known as the solar minimum and the solar maximum. In recent years, our Sun has been going through a highly volatile phase. Though still a year or more away from the next maximum, Solar Cycle 25 began in December 2019 and is already showing much higher solar activity than astronomers had predicted.
The Sun reaches its solar maximum, or the point of the most intense sunspot activity, during part of the 11-year solar cycle that astronomers have been tracking since the mid-1700s. The last solar maximum in 2013 to 2014 was very muted, and scientists had predicted another quiet peak for this cycle, which is dubbed Solar Cycle 25. But with the next maximum still a year or more away, this cycle is already exceeding expectations for activity and may even be the most intense period we've seen on the Sun since record-keeping began.
As the Sun increases its level of activity, its surface develops with more sunspots, which are dark regions with intense magnetic activity, each with the potential to expel solar flares. Solar flares are large explosions on the surface of the Sun that emit powerful energy which is then propagated through the universe. At high energy, solar flares eject a massive amount of charged particles from the Sun, known as coronal mass ejections or CMEs, which can produce powerful geomagnetic solar storms that disrupt Earth's communications, electric power grids, navigation signals, and can also harm astronauts and satellites in space. On a positive note, these charged sun particles can collide with atoms and molecules in the Earth's atmosphere and create wonderful auroras in our night sky, usually near the poles. With more intense solar activity during CMEs and solar storms, auroras, also known as northern lights or aurora borealis, and southern lights or aurora australis, are more consistent, brilliant, and visible even at lower latitudes. Solar flares are classified as X, M, C, B, and A class, with X class being the most powerful and A class the least powerful.
Scientists measure X-class flares as the most powerful, and higher numbers after the X signify an increase in the force of the explosion. In fact, NASA has recorded a few X1 flares in the previous year, but this is the most powerful observed since the Sun unleashed a pair of giant X-class flares.
In September of 1859, the largest solar storm to ever hit the Earth, known as the Carrington event, wreaked havoc on international telegraph lines, setting widespread fires to telegraph stations and ignited ultra-bright auroras across the globe, some of which were visible as far south as the Caribbean. On July 23, 2012, a highly anticipated solar superstorm, at least the strength of the Carrington event, narrowly missed Earth. According to studies, had it reached Earth, electrical outages from the Carrington event-level solar superstorm would have caused catastrophic damages, costing an estimated several $1 trillion in economic losses. Prolonged global blackouts could last for years, as such an event could damage multiple extra high-voltage transformers that are difficult to replace. This could significantly disrupt many sectors, including financial markets, telecommunications, emergency and medical services, the pumping of water and fuel, and the transport of food. The Earth and its inhabitants were incredibly fortunate that the 2012 eruption happened at the time it did and didn't reach the Earth. If it had hit, we would still be picking up the pieces, says Dr. Daniel Becker of the University of Colorado. It would be much worse than the last one due to humans' much greater dependence on modern technology than in 1859.
Flares emit energy that propagates throughout the solar system at the speed of light, which is why the radio blackout occurred as soon as the flare was visible. Professor von Siebenbergen of the University of Sheffield warned that a world increasingly reliant on technology was one more vulnerable to larger disruptive solar flares and more solar activity. He said, "This might not have been a problem 100 years ago," he said, when humanity wasn't relying on electrical technology so much. Today, it is another story.
Vegan side effect. Feeling one with the whole creation? Don't blame us.
Elevated viewers, let's pause for a moment to reflect on the messages the universe is sending us and pray for the well-being of all lives on our planet. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to our show, Solar Flares, a warning for humanity. In May 1967, while the world was in the grips of the Cold War, the Sun emitted one of the biggest solar storms ever observed at the time, releasing a colossal radio burst that interfered with the United States military's radio system. This was interpreted as a deliberate jamming attempt by a foreign adversary and a potential act of war. The world was brought to the brink of what could have been a nuclear war. Fortunately, the US Air Force had been expanding its space weather analysis capabilities, and forecasters managed to intervene, convincing decision makers that the sun was the likely cause before any rash commands were issued. Since early 2022, we have seen more disruptive X and M-class solar flares, despite the sun being a year or more away from its anticipated maximum. In February 2022, SpaceX reported losing 40 of its Starlink satellites to an extended geomagnetic storm. On April 19, 2022, the sun produced its greatest solar flare in 5 years, an X2.2, which reportedly caused radio blackouts in Australia, the Western Pacific, and East Asia.
This week, the sun produced a strong side flare. The outburst was caused by a sunspot on our local star's western limb. NASA issued a severe warning after the sun produced its greatest solar flare in years. The blast was spotted by NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory on Tuesday, triggering a radio blackout for particular shortwaves, aviation, and other communications centered on Asia.
The sun's recent outbursts show more vigorous activity than predicted in the 2020 consensus forecast published by the NOAA and NASA. In contrast, a study published in the journal Solar Physics by Dr. Scott McIntosh and colleagues from the National Center for Atmospheric Research predicted that solar cycle 25 could have a magnitude that rivals the top few since records began. Another study in Russia also indicates that this cycle could be among the most active ever and suggests that the solar maximum could come as early as late 2023 instead of 2025. These different findings illustrate how much more there is to learn about the sun's behavior. Scientists have struggled to predict both the length and the strength of sunspot cycles, because we lack a fundamental understanding of the mechanism that drives the cycle, McIntosh said in 2020. Scientists worry that the dramatic solar weather we've experienced may foreshadow more disruptive solar flares. A study published in 2019 found the chance of a Carrington-Evans scale flare occurring before 2029 to be less than 1.9%. Nevertheless, astronomers like Dr. Avi Loeb, former chair of the astronomy department at Harvard University, think that the most recent substantial solar flares should serve as a warning that the world must be prepared for another solar storm event of great magnitude. Extensive research has been undertaken to develop methods for detecting impending geomagnetic storms before they strike. Even a few hours of advanced warning may help us mitigate some of the negative impacts on Earth. However, despite such efforts, scientists are not yet always able to accurately predict when solar storms will occur or their magnitude.
The sun occasionally throws out a lot more material, damaging satellites and infrastructure on Earth. These are usually preceded by a solar flare, a day or two before they reach us. However, a new study reveals that certain storms may come with little or no warning at all.
Vegan, the great way to give thanks.
Treasured viewers, We are grateful for your company with us today. Please join us again on Wednesday, March 1st for part 2 of this series. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television for Awakening to Spiritual Awareness, part 3 of 14 on Between Master and Disciples. May you be blessed with inner peace, calm and harmony in your surroundings.
Be vegan, make peace, do good deeds, hell not reach.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/ss.